Everyone's so today, like I said, this is another episode of Supporting Local, and this is kind of a cool one because this is something that you can actually do right now while you're watching this. You can pause the video, hit the link, go support, and then come back and watch the rest of the video, or watch the video and then see what you're gonna get. But today we are talking to Julio Guerra, who is the co-founder of Guerrilla Publishing, and we're gonna talk about a pretty cool project that they've been working on since I want to say it's since 2019 that started was the first one for this the Tales of
Yeah.
Cryptic Closet. Say that 10 times fast. But Julio, thank you very much for your time today. Let us know, like, how did you get the idea to do this? And then, like, how did we get from the first issue to number 4, which is coming out soon?
Yeah. First off, thanks for having me. Thank you for your time and doing this. I appreciate it. Um, Tales from the Cryptic Closet started with myself and the one of the owners of the horror house shop based in Chicago, Vinny Malave and his brother Moses Gibson. One day we're just hanging out. We're big horror fans, and I'm a big comic book guy, and he knows that. And one day we're just hanging out, and at the time there was no um, horror anthologies. Like there was horror comics, but that like the days of like the EC comics of like Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Vault, and stuff like that were kind of like very scarce and rare. So we're talking about it and everything, and I think we were actually watching Creepshow, the movie, and they were talking about the show was going to come out and stuff, and he was just like, I miss those kind of books and this and this and that. And at the time, like I was really getting more into doing comics myself, and Guerrilla Publishing was still in infancy, kind of, and we're just trying to figure out what to do. And we always wanted to do things that weren't the norm. Like superheroes are on lock, Marvel, DC, Image, that's on lock. You can tell the Superman story over and over again. It's still a Superman story. Um, but we're like, hey, let's not do it. Why not? We're like, what do we got to lose? Let's just go ahead and do it. And the first issue coincide with the horror house pop-up shop. So before it became like an actual brick and mortar, it was a pop-up shop to promote the comic book. So we did a Kickstarter for it. We got a bunch of our friends for the first issue, a lot of people that we known, Vinny through working the different horror conventions, myself and Ben Miller and Adam Farster, who are the other two co-founders of Guerrilla Publishing, a bunch of people that we got to know over doing comic conventions and stuff like that we were fans of. And we're just like, hey, we're going to do this comic. You want in? And a lot of the guys were just like, yeah, let's do it. And they were same thing. They were from back in the EC comic days. They knew those and were fans of it and stuff. And they wanted to bring that back. So we started with that. And myself and Vinny worked for Pro Wrestling Tees and Shop AEW. So Vinny has a relationship with Karrion Kross. At the time, he was Killer Kross from WWE, or before he went to WWE. And we asked him, he was like, hey, would you mind doing it? Because his character coincides with horror. So we're like, hey, would you mind doing it? And he said, yeah. And he wrote a killer intro. And he did the first 2 issues. And in issue 3, we were able to have Danhausen do the intro on it. And then, and now we're on issue 4, which we're steering away from the wrestling this time. And Vinny asked horror actor Brett Wagner. He's known for portraying Leatherface in the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. He was in The Crazies. John Dies at the End. He's currently a podcast host with man, I forgot her name. Felicia Rose. She was a Sleepaway Camp, the killer in the first Sleepaway Camp. So they do that, and he wrote basically a love letter. Like we didn't know he was like a big comic book guy, and he same thing. He was like, "Oh, this brings me back to the days of the EC comics that I used to read as a kid and stuff." And he basically wrote a love letter that sums up like what we've been trying to do with this series.
That's awesome. And it's also cool hearing your story. It kind of reminds me of like how like the Fandads started, because it's just two of us hanging out all the time. We're like, oh, we should do something about, being geeks and gonna have kids. So we
Yeah.
just jumped into it. But no, but it's awesome too that, someone from that world, that horror world, showing their love of something that you wouldn't even think of. Because sometimes, like Harry Cross, for example, because of like Ethan Page's like toy shopping videos, like that's how I knew like he was like big into like collecting action figures or
Hmm.
whatnot. So it's kind of cool to see that. And Danhausen too, watching him in those videos, like when they're buying toys, it's just hilarious because
Oh
they're
yeah.
like little kids, but you see them in the ring doing like all this crazy stuff, but then when they hit a comic book store, they get all giddy when they find that toy that they want.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but because of that though, like when you started, you guys already had connections, you said, for like going to the Comic Cons and like doing the pop-up shops. But when you decided on, okay, we're gonna do our first issue, how did you like, I guess, decide which are the writers or author or artists that you wanted to work with, and then like build on from there to where you're at now?
Gotcha. So um a lot of the guys were already in house, like myself, Ben Miller, Adam Farster, Lisa Jones, um, Ashley Esper, Jorge Garza. They were already like with us. Like they were already doing their own books through Guerrilla, and we were pitching the idea to them. We had like a big meeting, and they were all for it. So we're like, oh, okay, we'll bring them on. And then Joshua Hall, who was the screenwriter for the movie Glorious, which was a Shudder exclusive, and now he's a big time horror writer. Um, he he knew Vinny and stuff, and Vinny pitched the idea, and he was like, "Oh, I always wanted to do a comic," so he brought him on, and that led to other people coming on as well through friends of friends, like talking, just like I guess they had a good experience working on the first book, so they're like telling others. But these were like we were fans of these people, we still are. So like the artists or the writers, um, they're on there because we like what they do, we know what they're capable of doing, and we thought it would be great to have them on there, especially like when you get to talk to other artists or other writers or people in the communities, you start finding out what their inspirations are and what drives them. And for all of us, a lot of us went back to these old EC books. So it was just like, oh, okay, well, you already know, so you want to jump on board. And then it grew from there. And there was just like people we wanted to work with, like issue 2. We had John Parrish, who worked for Arterna and Scout Comics. I'm a big fan of his and his work as a writer, and I was like, oh, I want to bring him on, I want to work with him. And it was just like basically like we can make these dream team ups happen. So we started doing that, and then like we started finding new people, like Nathan Erdell, who's he works with a horror host from Indianapolis named Sammy Terry. It's like a Spenguli type show, and he helps writes that one. He's been with us since issue 2, and now he's 3 and 4. Um, so it's just a bunch of people that we've like. Basically, it's like our own little family like gathering now. But again, we're fans of their writing or their artwork, and just brought them on. Like Bill Haller, he's the cover artist. He does the break pages. He did a story in issue 1, 2, and 3. This is the first time he's not doing a story, but he's still doing the cover and the break pages. This dude is phenomenal. Like he's one of my closest friends, and I just like every time he shows me like this is going to be the cover, I'm just like I'm giving up. I'm not drawing ever again in my life. I'm done. Because he just keeps upping the ante every time he does this, and it's just good work. Like you could tell his influences like Bernie Wrightson and all these old school like comic artists who used hatching and stuff like that. And he basically made this comic what it is today. Like the killer artwork for the covers, the host of the comic, the Cryptic Creeper. There's a lot of C's in these things that we say. It's crazy. But yeah, he basically developed it, and it. I mean, we've been firing on all cylinders because of him and Vinny.
Yeah, no, I mean it's like kind of going back to what you said earlier. I mean, yeah, I grew up like Marvel, like Spider-Man, like you see behind me, Spider-Man is like my big favorite character. But now, like, I feel like the stories are constantly repeating. So I've been leaning a lot toward more horror movies or horror comics. Back in the day, I used to buy like the Tales from the Crypt comics and the EC comics,
Like,
because those were a lot of fun because it was constantly different stories.
oh
And
yeah.
then we had like the HBO series, which the Tales from the Crypt. So watching all that was always fun for me. And even like nowadays, like I whenever I go to a comic book store, I try to see what's out there that's different. And then like the Creep Show is back out in
Yeah.
comic form, which is kind of fun. And it's funny how you mentioned Creep Show earlier because every Father's Day I always watch the Father's Day episode. And I even have
Nice.
like the T-shirt and the action figure of that because it's like my favorite thing.
Yeah.
But it is cool to see how like just saying like, oh, this is the type of comic we want to do, and like everybody automatically goes to that EC, like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, you mean like this, and it's because it's just so embedded in like horror fans. Like these
Yeah.
are such dope comics to read, and the stories are amazing. But I know like horror for people is like subjective. Like some people like the jump scares, some people just like the psychological horror. But like for
Yeah.
you, when you're getting these pitches or when you're getting the story sent to you of what people want to do, what makes like a good horror story for you that makes you want to say, yeah, I want to put this in here? And has there ever been like time where you're like, I don't know if this will fit this book now, maybe something later, or you've ever had those moments?
Um, I wouldn't say I don't think we ever like really rejected a story. And it goes back to like how you were saying, there's different subgenres of horror. There's a slasher, there's a psychological, there's a supernatural, there's the exorcism, stuff like that. And that's what makes horror good. And that's what makes those anthologies good, is because it was always like how you said, it was a different story every time. It wasn't the same story all the time. And that's what we're doing with all three issues of, or all four now, is we do all kinds of horror. Like it's not always just a slasher or a psychological or a suspense thriller. Like everyone's different. Like we had in like one of my favorite things is the old school Universal, like Abbott and Costello Meets. It still had the monsters, but it had a comedic thing to it, and it made the horror less intensified. And sometimes you need that, like how you said, not everyone's like a fan of certain things. Sometimes it can be too much, and that's what we want to do, is like we want to bring everyone into it somehow, because it's like every story can reach someone differently, or it can bring someone in who might not like horror. They're like, oh, I like how that's drawn, that's cool. uh and we keep doing that. And like some of these guys, um throughout the process of the first three issues, have never written a horror story before. Ben Miller, this was like his first horror story. John Parrish did a horror story, and Ben Miller's never seen a horror movie until like we became friends like 10 years ago. And so it was like cool to see him take the very little knowledge that he had of it and basically write like a two-part story that was in issue one and issue two. And then like horror, like for me, horror always represents the times that we live in, or it has like some sort of a subliminal message, or prepares you for what's to come. And he did that with a story, like a Monster Hunter type story. Like it's a SWAT team. Basically, it's like cops, like the show Cops, and they're hunting a monster. And there's a twist in it. It was like very Twilight Zone ish. And I was like, dude, this is dope. Like how he did it, and told the times that we were living then about like the rise of police brutality, and fearing the police because now they're just doing whatever they want type stuff. So there was a lot of political and slice of life elements into it. And then we have, like I said, we have the goofy, like, here's this comedic part with these monsters that we're just going to run a story with and just have fun with it and joke with it. And then it's all, like I said, it's all over the place. Like for this new one, I got pushed to my limits with it as an artist, for a story. It's called The Last All Hallows Eve, and it's basically three kids who are best friends, and they want to be super adventurous during Halloween, and things go sideways. And you're just like, whoa. And the stuff that Nathan, this is my first working with Nathan Erdell, and like the stuff he has in that story like pushed me to my limit as an artist. Like I had to think outside the box and stuff like that. And I think it's a it's a great story. I love it. I don't want to give too much away because like, oh, you got to do the Kickstarter to read it, you know. But like we have good ones in there. We have a basically like a supernatural one that a dog is the vocal point of the story. Like, it's the first time we're actually focusing outside of humans and stuff like that and seeing it from a different POV. So there's no like real wrong way to tell horror. It's all subjective. It's an art form. So we're like, oh yeah, as long as the writer and artist can make it work and figure it out, and it looks great and it reads great. I mean, we'll always go for it.
Yeah, speaking of the artist and writer, like so when you have, I guess I don't, because I wanted to like kind of get into like how it's created. Is it like, so do you get like the stories like sent to you, the scripts, and then you either like show it to the artist, or do you like, oh, this will be great with this artist, or how does that work? Like figuring out who's gonna draw what, or how's that gonna like that pairing's gonna work?
Gotcha. So a lot of it is like a writer or artist will say they want to work with that person. Like they already know, like, oh, I like this guy's style. Can I work with him? So if they want to work together, we go ahead and do it. Um, but a lot of it too was like who can benefit from working with each other, because that's essentially what you want to do. Like you don't want to get, how can I say it? Like you exercise, you don't want to always exercise the same muscle because you plateau. You want to keep getting better, so you do different routines, more weight, you know, things like that. So that's what we do. If we see, oh, this writer, for example, like John or Nathan or Josh, who I would say are a little bit more established than some of the other writers, what are some of the artists who are coming up who want to take being a comic book artist seriously, and they can learn from reading an actual comic script and following the format and pick that writer's brain, and vice versa, where like we have a writer who's probably never written a comic book but loves this comic book artist style, and they can work together on developing the script. Like, oh, I have this idea, what can we do? And then sometimes it's too like, oh, this script is really dope, what if Bill drew it, because Bill can look at it this different way. And so it's a combination of all the things. It's like recommendations, what they want to do, who will benefit, and just like, oh, what would look dope on a page written or drawn by this person.
Yeah, that's dope to hear. That's dope to hear because it's like it's you're all supporting each other, trying to get that same goal, but no one's trying to outshine somebody else. It's like, hey, we're working on this together, and I think that's what's also kind of cool about this whole community. Because like I'm meeting a lot of people from like the Chicago area by doing this, and it's like everyone knows each other, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But also too, it's like as a creative, I mean, obviously, you know, you have family that's like supporting you and like, you know, helping you out. But after a certain point, they're like, there's only so much they can do.
Oh yeah.
So that's why we start something, or you start something like the Kickstarter, because it's like, yes, I have, you know, like maybe that cousin or aunt that would buy like, you know, 4 issues, but after a while, they're like, come on, you know, how many more do I got to buy to help out? But with the Kickstarter, it's great because they can share it with their friends and family to get more people to support the book,
Yeah.
and then be like, you know, that's my cousin, that's my, you know, uncle that's doing that book. So the importance of the Kickstarter is really great because, you know, you can get a lot of people in there. So what I want to do right now is I want to kind of share like the rewards that you guys have
Yeah.
for the Kickstarter, because it's like, yes, not only are you getting a pretty great book, but here's like what we're talking, like the Brett Wagner who wrote the forward for the book. But I mean, just like even supporting like, you know, a couple bucks, you know, you're helping out. You guys got some amazing talent on here, which is
Thank you.
pretty great. And then out of all of these, are any of these like, is this like their first time working on the Kickstarter, or is this is like on the comic? I mean, or is it like are these like veterans for the Cryptic Closet?
So it's a combination of both. So like we could start from beginning to to the bottom actually. So Lillian Bonner, this is her first time being published ever. She's a high school student of Adam Farster, who's one of the co-founders of Guerrilla. He's an art teacher in Portage High School in Portage, Indiana, and she showed like, hey, I really want to do this. This is something I'm very passionate about and want to do it. So he gave her the opportunity, and she's working with John Parrish. John has worked with us before on issue 2, of Tales from the Cryptic Closet, so he's a veteran. And I think this is like his second or third horror story that he's written, and he's teamed up with her. And Lillian brought a whole different art style to the book that we never seen before. She's great. The story they did together was amazing. Like she did his so well that I couldn't see any other artist doing that story. And this is her first time. Nathan Erdell, he's been with us since issue 2, so he's a Tales veteran. This dude does some wild stuff. Like I said, I'm working with him on this one, and it's great. Adam, he's been with us for every single issue, either doing a story, lettering, coloring. He's always in there in some capacity doing something. Othel Flowers has been with us before in issue 2. He's back with Vinny Malave on a revenge lucha story, which is pretty cool. So even though we don't have a wrestling horror host on this intro, we actually have a horror wrestling story this time. Moses is one of the co-founders and owners of the Horror House Shop. He helps brings the talent together. He's been with us since day one, since we were sitting there brainstorming the whole thing. Myself, I've been there since the first issue as well. Bill, same thing. Like I said earlier, like he's the reason why the books look so amazing. Matthew Hansel. So Matthews is a special case. He was with us for production of issue 3, which we did entirely in 3D. So it came with 3D glasses. You can read it in 3D. We went super old school. So he was actually working with Image Comics at the time for a comic called Hell Cop, and they were doing 3D for their first issue. So he was helping us working on our 3D production in that one. And he's done his own books with Guerrilla. So we wanted to bring him in because the story that Ben Miller was doing is like a 1920s like prohibition cult story. And Matthew is a big influence from the old Dick Tracy and 20s Bill Finger and style artwork. And so he brought that in, and that's another great looking story. It has that crime noir feel to it. Lisa Jones, she's been with us a few times. So she's an award-winning muralist. She's been doing stuff all over the region and Chicagoland area. She does all the pinup work in the back. So this one, she came back. She wasn't with us in 3, but she was with us for the other issues. Vinny, again, been with us since the first one. Without him, there will also probably be no Tales from the Cryptic Closet. He's writing a story with Othel. Ben Miller has been with one of the co-founders of Guerrilla, been with us since issue 1. John, again, is back for 2 and 4. And then these last 2, Isaac Popovich and Eric Wolfgang, first time with us. And they're very cool because they're doing their own stories. They wrote it and they're drawing. Or I should say they've done it because all the pages are done. The book's 100% done, which is awesome. So these 2 guys, first time ever being with us on the stories. I know Isaac's fairly new. He's an up and coming artist like Lillian. He's been putting out like his own little like comic zines out and stuff called Tombstone Toonies, and he's been doing very well with them. They look like the old like Cuphead and Mugman style, so it's pretty vaudevillain style looking comics, and they're good. They're really good. Like he writes them all. There's super like a lot of thought behind them. And then Eric Wolfgang, we met through a friend of ours. We had a mutual friend, and we kind of like bypassed each other here and there. And he's been doing work for All Yeah Comics, and I think he was like an intern for Marvel at one point, and doing all kinds of stuff. And he's done some great work, and we connected finally. I think he wanted to be a part of the book. We wanted him to be a part of it, and it just worked out. And he did like another killer like supernatural horror that's just off the chain. When I first saw it, I was just like, dude, this is insanity. But it fit, like it's something we've never done before. So we have again, people who've never done this before to people who kind of done it to like guys who are like, oh yeah, we're with Julio, Miller, and Adam.
That's great, man, and it's cool too because that way, if someone like picks up an issue and we're like, oh, they're expecting the same thing. It's good. It's like, no, this is going to be completely like you're saying. A lot of this stuff, like you've been doing this for a good amount of years, so just hearing that you're blown away by some of the stuff that you're seeing makes it even more like more tempting to go out there and support this. Um, like with any Kickstarter, you guys got a lot of rewards, which is great. So I'm just gonna like just call them off. I mean, friends, we're gonna have like the link to this in the description, so definitely go out there and read more about this. But you got like you could even do like right here, you can just like pledge $1 or $2 just to like to help out. But if you want like an actual reward, it starts at $5. I mean, it's not much. You get like a digital or a physical copy. I mean, there's something for like any comic, bookstores out there that are watching that want to like support. The one that I'm eyeing on is this one, the Dream Master. So I'm hoping that like by payday this week, that's still available, so I can jump on that one because that one's kind of cool. Like you get the cereal box and all the past issues. Because like I was telling you earlier, it's like I've seen these, but I've never had a chance to jump on one. So hopefully I can get jumped on with this one right here. And then you got the shirt. And this is the shirt's also drawn by the guy that did the covers. Is that right? Correct?
Yeah. Bill Halliard designed the shirt. He designs all the shirts. He designed a cereal box too. So it's the same artist. He just can like, again, he's so amazing. He can switch his styles at a drop of a hat. And then, yeah, he does a lot of the stuff. So if anything you see is probably more than likely Bill who designed it somehow.
Yeah, and then you got a action figure, which is kind of dope, and it comes in a card bag too, which is like me. I collect figures and stuff like this. Like I said, I have like the Creep Show Father's Day figure. So something like this would be like perfect, like to get into that collection. And then like up to $100. I mean, but if you can't draw or if you can't write but want to see yourself in the comic, I mean, you have this right here. Like for 200, you can get your face in the comic book, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of cool rewards on this, and then also too, like if you want to add on the shirt or the cereal box to keep all of them, this is great. Like when it comes to like this part of the Kickstarter, like what's like the process of that? Like how do you think about let's do this for this amount or this for that amount? Like how did that come about?
So that's where Vinny and Moses really shine in merchandising and stuff like that. One of the things Guerrilla likes to do, we always like to have a shirt, like an exclusive shirt to represent the book or whatnot. But when it comes to like these other things, it's all Vinny and Moses. The cereal box we wanted to do in issue 3. But we were like, so we're like, why don't we do a cereal box? And that was all Bill, and he was the one who pitched it. Like, hey, let's be very unique. Let's still have like a very cool slip cover, but let's make it different where it still looks great on a shelf and change it up and stuff. And then from there, you just go and you start researching who can make these things and what like bulk costs are and stuff like that, and then start figuring out your cost and bundle costs and stuff. So like we deal with one printer who's in the States. It's called Comics Wellspring. We've been working with them for a few years now, so we're super excited to work with them again. And we kind of know already what print costs are for that. And then like a shirt, we already know that stuff since we've been doing those. But the other stuff is like constant research, constant contacting people. Like, can you make this happen? Like, I didn't know how hard it was to find someone who can make a cereal box, like the actual box printing. That was a lot to try to figure out. But then you spread that across, like everyone's trying to look for stuff, and we hold meetings quite a bit, and there's a lot of Google documents that are shared and stuff. And then we finally come out to like a number we think we can reach, and we look at previous Kickstarters and look at like how many or how much those we're making and stuff like that, and see what we can achieve.
Nice. And then again, like you said, everything is completely done. except for like the back covers with the
Yeah.
people that are gonna get to draw. So it's not like once the Kickstarter ends, the people that funded or supported don't have that long of a time to wait to get their stuff. Because like the cool thing with the cereal box is that you can actually go to the horror house and pick it up once that's all said and done, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool. Because I have yet to go to the new store, so I need to go there and check it out. But being real quick, since we are talking about horror comics, what is your favorite horror movie, or the horror movie that got you into horror?
Um, so I've been into horror since I was a kid. Like my parents showed me the old Universal stuff and the Hammer stuff, and then I just kind of like went from there. Like it was a gateway type deal. It was like, here's this stuff, and they got me into it. And then going to the video stores, which is like not a thing anymore. Like I had a group of friends in high school, and we would all take $5, go to the video store, and we and then just going from there, like finding that stuff out, and then knowing about the comic books and reading horror books, and now just like going to cons and talking to people, and um, just like some of my coworkers right now, that like there's at least 3 or 4 of us that are like, hey man, what you watch this weekend? Um, so that's always cool. But yeah, my parents, man, my uncle and my mom were like, they were into it when they were kids, and they passed it along. So that's what got me into it. And like Texas Chainsaw and Halloween are my two that are forever. And then like Shaun of the Dead, I love Shaun of the Dead. It's one of my 5 favorite movies of all time. Psycho and stuff like that. And then I'm into true crime too, so knowing that a lot of the true crime stuff bleeds into horror, and how they use things like Ed Gein for Leatherface, and Norman Bates and stuff, it adds more to it.
Yeah, it's funny because like Texas Chainsaw Massacre is like one of my all-time favorites, and like Music Box had it not too long ago, and like my daughter was like, she was interested in seeing it, so I was like, all right, what better way to see it than on the big screen?
Oh
So
yeah.
we went, and then afterwards she was like, it's not as scary as I thought it would be. I'm like, "Ah, it messes with you, but not right away." Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, there's definitely there's a lot of good stuff out there, horror wise, and it's kind of funny how people are like, horror's coming back, but I mean it's always been around, but now it seems like it's
Oh yeah.
more mainstream in theaters than it was before. Because I mean you got Shudder, and you got a lot of amazing things on there, and definitely
Yeah.
online. Uh, but again, Julio, I think it runs till the 16th of March, the Kickstarter. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, 16, 17, somewhere around there.
so friends, I mean, definitely, like I said, all the description the link to the Kickstarter will be in our description. Go check it out, see what they have, see what reward tier is something that you would like to sponsor or to support. And then again, it's like, the great thing about the reason I started like the whole supporting local thing is because whenever I would go to cons, I'd always talk to people that are from the city. And then I'm like, you know what? We do like quick little videos, like 5-minute videos. Why not extend it more? So doing something like this is great because not only are we supporting someone from the city, someone local, but it's an awesome project. And then once this is done, how how much time do you give yourself before you start thinking about the next one?
Uh, so we're already thinking about the next one, to be honest. And that's Vinny. Vinny's very hey man, what about this for 5? So like there's some stuff for 5 already in plant, like in the seeds, in the making.
Uh-huh.
And it's like a lot of people ask for this book, which we're super grateful for when we do shows and cons and stuff like that. And we're happy people like what we're doing. We're having a blast doing it. Um, I don't know how soon 5 will be after 4. I
Uh-huh.
know after this one after 3 we took, I want to say like a 2-year break or something like that. And I thought it was for the best because things could get redundant and kind of burned out and stuff. And here we did 4, and I think 4, I love the other 3 issues. The other 3 issues are amazing,
Uh-huh.
but 4 is the best one we ever made. And it's not knocking the other ones, it's just
Right.
saying like we got better in time. Like we found out our formula, we keep it rolling, we keep getting better. The stories are better, the writing's better, the art's better. It's because everyone's been practicing, exercising, doing the things that they needed to do. So if it was stagnant, I'm just like, yeah, it's like the other three done our jobs as creators of trying to excel and get better. But this one's the bee's knees right now. And if I'm thinking that for 4, just wait until we get working on 5, and it'll be better than 4. So
Nice,
yeah.
nice. But Julio, thank you very much for your time today. Again, friends, the Kickstarter is to support the issue 4 of Tales of the Cryptic Closet. Again, say that 10 times fast. Who knows? Maybe you get like a discount if you do it. If you say it 10 times without messing up. But again, man, thank you very much for your time today. Friends, Julio Guerra, Tales of the Cryptic Closet. Thank you.
Oh, no problem, man. Thank you, and thank you for doing this and everything you do for the community, man. Greatly appreciate that.
Cool, man. You take care.
You too.